Hello friends, it's Aubrey from Crybaby Sentimental Homestead. Today I was thinking about gardening with kids. So if you have children, especially small children, um, or any age really, but especially small children, if you're a homeschooler or even if you're not, it's really great to have your kids participate with you in the garden and to really get children involved in gardening. It's nice if you can give them their own space in the garden, even if it's just a few pots or maybe one raised bed, but to give them a certain area that's just for them. And what I would recommend gardening for them for the first time, um, if they like sweet peas, those do great. I would give them some sticks or some bamboo, lean them like into three, tie it up, and then they would plant like 2 peas per stake. And in the center of that, they could plant lettuce if they like salads. If they don't like it, don't have them plant things they don't like to eat. So sweet peas are usually very popular for kids.
So I really want to be clear about the peas because some people say sweet peas and they're talking about the food sweet peas. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about garden peas that people eat. But there is a flowering pea that is a different species, and if you click on these, and I'm looking at rare seeds here, it will specifically tell you the seeds, pods, and plants are poisonous. If I had a garden at home and I had little kids, I would never grow this kind of plant because if a child sees the plants look so similar, if they see the pods, they might eat them, and these are poisonous. So please do not grow this kind in a child's garden. There are several types of the sweet pea flowering plants that are beautiful, but they are toxic. So if you click on these, what I really love about Baker Creek is that they tell you, warning, the seeds, pods, and plants are poisonous. So it's very clear on here which ones are poisonous and which ones are not. I'm talking about just the regular garden peas. I shouldn't have said sweet pea. I should have said snap pea or sugar snaps, that kind of stuff. So I'm talking about these and like Little Marvel Garden. These are easy. This would be good for kids to grow in the garden, not the flowering sweet peas. Please be careful. Um, Make sure that you know, like they've got the scientific name right here, and these are the edible type. Yes, they actually do produce flowers, but the flowering sweet peas are toxic, and these are the type that people eat. See here, there's no sign that says toxic. It talks about sweetly flavored peas, dependable heirloom. This is what I'm talking about in the video where I'm suggesting that your children grow peas. I'm talking about the food peas, not the flowering peas. Just want to make sure I'm super duper clear. You don't want to have your kids growing anything toxic. Much older children, you can explain to them these things, these flowers are edible, these are not. The leaves on this are edible, the leaves on those are toxic. But for little kids, make sure that you only have them growing plants where the whole plant is safe and that they know what part of the plant they're allowed to eat. And of course, supervise your children so that they know that so that you know what they're getting into. And if you grow something that's similar to what they're growing, make sure that they know if they're allowed to pick out of your garden or not, because you don't want an accident. All right, everybody, be safe.
Radishes are very easy, but they're not usually what kids like the most. So I wouldn't necessarily do the radishes for them, but sweet peas for sure. My son loves dill. Other kinds of herbs that they like, whatever they enjoy the most. Dill is popular for kids. So I would definitely try dill if you want to give that a try. Most kids don't like zucchini. That's one of the easier things to grow, but most do like cucumbers. So I would say start with a self-fertile cucumber plant, a couple of pea plants, like maybe 5 or 6 in a big container. And then some kind of flowers like marigolds would be great. Borage is really great because the little blue flowers are edible and they taste like cucumber. And you could do maybe pansies or calendula or something very easy and simple like that. All right. Something you need to consider when you're letting kids plant is whether the greenery of the plant or if the flowers are toxic or anything like that. So potatoes are great for kids to plant if they're at an age where they know that they're not to eat the leaves. So potatoes are awesome. I've let my son grow blue potatoes, which is really fun to have those colorful potatoes. And that's a great choice. If they're very young and they put anything in their mouth, then I'd stick with to the peas and things like that. If you want to add a sensory type element to it, having them grow lamb's ear or possibly rose campion. And that gives kind of a sensory bit to it with the sense of touch. Very soft leaves. Those are great. But the reason why I was inspired to make this video is because I constantly have to go and get crickets. Because in my classroom, we have some rescue frogs that are not going to be with us all year. They're eventually going to be released, but we have to feed them. And so several years ago, I had a gardening class, and we would go outside and observe, and the kids wanted to collect insects and things to just look at them and then let them go. So I started using these instant coffee containers because they have an opening like a mason jar does, but it's not glass. This is plastic, right? So all you have to do is cover the hole with something like tulle. And after watching Robbie and Gary on YouTube, I bought, because she encourages people to use tulle for all kinds of things, and I don't use them for exactly the same things. They haven't worked for me the way that they work for her in terms of keeping away rodents and stuff. It hasn't worked for me, but I do use the tulle, and it's worked out pretty well. So I don't use the tulle the way that she does, but I do use a lot of tulle in my garden. And I tried putting it around my hazelnuts, and squirrels were like, "You think this will keep me away?" They went for it. They just chewed right through it and ate my hazelnuts. So it didn't work for my hazelnuts, protecting them. It did work for protecting my plums from the birds, but it did not do anything for the chipmunks or the squirrels or whatever it was eating the nuts. They were apparently too much of a temptation. They got through it. But I do use the tools to make these little terrariums. The other thing is, you don't have to use tulle. It's very simple. If you have any coffee filters, the paper coffee filters, they work perfect. And what's nice about those is that they are permeable, semi-permeable, so they breathe perfectly fine. But then also, if you have slugs or snails, they won't deform their bodies trying to squeeze through the tiny little holes. Slugs and snails will do that. They'll try to get to the tulle. I had some really wide-spaced tulle-like material, and it was really gross how a slug tried to almost split itself in half going through it. It was fine. Now, I do want to make a comment about, and some people probably think, why would you want to catch crickets or slugs or snails? Those are pests in the garden. Well, they are. But if you're having a garden for your kids and you want them to observe different life forms and different kinds of organisms, they could get a real good educational activity out of that. They could, if you're homeschooling, they could draw the anatomy. They could measure it in, metric units versus customary units. They could see, research, what does it eat? What eats it? They could draw food webs. They could do all kinds of really cool things with this. And you don't keep them indefinitely in those terrariums. It's like for like a 1 day observation. You don't leave it on a hot area where they're going to just fry up. Okay. I might have a personal experience as a child. We had a metal coffee tin. My mom might have left a little lizard in it in the hot sun. And I was a little terrified. I was a little traumatized by that. So make sure that you don't leave it out. But if the kids are going to just observe something for like an hour or two, then they can let it go. And then you can tell them to let them, where specifically should you let it go. So you could tell your child, your task is to catch any crickets or roly-polies or snails. And then you're going to observe them, try to find the scientific name, see what they eat, maybe try to see if you can give little pieces of it to whatever. And then you're going to release it in this area of the property. Or we're going to go to a park and we're going to release it on the trail. And that they get to be spared, right? So when I did slug observations with my class, we said, it's kind of like the turkey that won the raffle because it's going to be spared. So, if it was in my garden, I probably would end up freezing them. But since it's been an educational experience and you probably named it, the kids get really like attached to the cricket or the roly-poly or whatever they found. You don't want to traumatize them. Okay. So what I would do is say, okay, well, this one gets to be spared because it taught you something. And then you'd go for a walk somewhere and let it go. Right. So that's what I would do with that experience. And so, you don't have to be a homeschooler. Okay. And this would actually work a lot with, disabled adults as well. My little brother has Down syndrome. And so something like this would be really fun for him as well. So it doesn't have to just be for kids. I personally like catching and observing things too, even though I'm older. But a lot of times you'll come across something in your garden and you won't know if it's harmful or beneficial. So that's also a reason to collect things, even if, it's not for the purpose of, teaching a kid. It could just be for yourself. If you find something like in one of my shorts, I show you a picture of these like little larva things. And one year I was infested with them. They were all over my potato plants. And I kind of assumed that they were some kind of potato bug or something. And I had only been gardening with that particular crop for a couple of years. I thought, oh no, they found me. So I actually looked it up and I did a lot of research and I found out that they were ladybug larvae. Imagine if I had gotten rid of them with soapy wet water and like knocked them off and killed them. That would have been terrible. So it can also, like, you can have one of these with you, just a little container with a coffee filter. And then you can have a chance to look it up and then let it go if it's good and dispose of it if it's bad. But if you involve your kids with it, I would spare the insect or the slug or whatever, because it's been a learning experience for them. So that particular organism gets to be free, but choose a place that's not in your garden. So anyway, lots of good ideas. Hopefully you guys will do that. Give your kids at least a container that they can garden in. Like you saw the other day when I was pouring out the soil, there were like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pots that I got from somebody on a website for my son, and he planted things and he'll plant things in there again. But I'll also give him a raised bed just for himself. When I go to the Dollar Tree, if he comes with me, he gets to pick out seeds. He's gotten to choose tools, like he has his own little shovel. He also picked out the little windmills and puts them in the garden. And and it looks so cheesy, and I know. So those of you who like really want your property to be like really prim and proper might not love that idea, but he just loves having the windmills and things in his little garden area, and he gets a kick out of it. He really enjoys it. And one year, him and the neighbor child caught what did they catch? They caught something really cool. I'll think about it in a second. A praying mantis. They caught a praying mantis, and they were just like gonna like keep it in a container with no lid. And I said, hold on. And I grabbed one of these containers and I brought it outside for them. And they were able to observe it and then set it free. So like do no harm, right? So hopefully you will like the idea. of letting your child, if you have kids, to have their own garden, or at least pots or a raised bed or something, or an area in your garden. Let them give input of like, what do they want to grow? Make sure that you're not having them plant things that look like something else that's edible, because you don't want them to eat something that's poisonous. But like I said, sweet peas are great. Cucumbers would be perfect. Carrots are kind of more tricky, but there's no purpose, there's no waste. Like, there's no harm in letting them plant some carrot seeds. So they're just a little bit harder to get them to sprout. You have to keep them really well moist. You can actually let the kids make their own watering containers too. Like, I will save the creamer for my coffee and take off the tag and rinse them out really good. That's a watering container. Give them a couple of Sharpies, black Sharpies, different colors. They can decorate their watering containers. If you have plastic cups, you can melt holes in the bottom. Let them decorate all over the sides of the cups so they have their own container. Write their name. Write, I love you, Mom, for Mother's Day. I love you, Dad, for Father's Day. All kinds of cute little ideas. So, great idea for homeschoolers. You can actually have gardening be their science curriculum. I'm not kidding. It could almost cover almost everything. If you do a little bit of creativity, you could really cover a lot of content. You could even have them have writing prompts and the historical connections. And so there's like really limitless possibilities with having your children participate in gardening. Okay. So, all right, everyone, if you have any comments, how have you encouraged your kids to garden? Or if, do you have clever ideas on how to encourage younger people to participate? One thing I do want you to think about is that our farmers are an aging out group. I think they said like the average age of a gardener, of a actual farmer, is like in their 60s. And so, and they're not being, those jobs are not being replaced at the same rate as people are retiring. So we really need to get more young people interested in agriculture and being able to do these things. All right, everyone, God bless, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.